our text is broken up into basically 3 scenes. And if you've ever seen dominoes in this elaborate pattern, going down, tumbling down, we're watching Easter happen 2 more times. On Sunday, on Easter Sunday, I did preach the Easter account in the Gospel of St. Matthew. However, 99% of the time I preach the Gospel Easter account from John. And in that account, the disciples go to the tomb, they look, it's empty, they run home. But Mary Magdalene stays there crying. She cannot be consoled. And she sees a guy in the garden and said, if you've taken his body, tell me where it is so that I can find it. And the guy that she thought was the gardener said her name, Mary, and she knew it was Jesus. So Mary was the first one to see Jesus after he had been raised from the dead. And he gave her a mission. Go tell my brothers that I will ascend to my Father and my God, your Father and your God. So off she went. She accomplished her mission. But strangely, the disciples are still in a locked room, afraid. We know what it's like to be afraid. Some of the symptoms and things they experienced, we may be experiencing now. Hard to sleep, bad dreams, hard to breathe, no appetite, feeling isolated and abandoned. And in spite of Mary's message of resurrection, they're thinking, what do we do now? What do we do now? Plus, bright out fear because, of the Jewish leaders and those in power. If they executed Jesus, they could certainly get these guys. But what happens? Into that room where you could feel the fear, Jesus came, locked door or not. And he's in the middle of them and he says, peace be with you. Not, you bunch of losers, why didn't you listen to Mary? Peace be with you. He showed them his hands, his side, and he breathed the Holy Spirit on them. They were thrilled. They went and they told Thomas, who was not with them at the time, and he brought them down to earth. Now, Thomas was just a guy who he knew Jesus as a man. And he can't make that leap that dead Jesus could be living Jesus. I saw a cartoon online, and the disciples are in a circle eating, and Thomas is saying, I know he's special, but dead men don't come back to life. And then he says, he's standing behind me, isn't he? Thomas is not a coward. When Jesus was going to go back to Judea, back to Bethany, when Lazarus had died, the disciples are saying, wait, didn't they just want to kill us there because you made the man who was born blind, gave him his sight back? Thomas said, we will die with you. And when later on in the account, when Jesus is saying, where I'm going, you can't go now, but I'm going to prepare a place for you. And you know where I'm going. And Thomas is like, wait, I have not seen a map. I do not know where you are going. Thomas is a concrete guy. We all know people who need to have stuff they can touch. They just learn things through their senses. And it's easy for us, sort of looking at it with what we know. But I want to read something that Martha Spong, United Church of Christ pastor, wrote. She says, in a way, it's easier for us because we consider the story in a different order. Hey, we saw Jesus appear to the disciples when Thomas wasn't there. The real wonder is God having hands and feet in the first place. The real wonder is God allowing human beings the power to nail those hands and feet to a cross. We start with the feet of little baby Jesus, with his tender and vulnerable humanity, absolutely full of godness. When we believe this part of the story, the resurrection is a reasonable conclusion. Of course, God who became human and died could then exist in another form. When Thomas comes on the scene, and again, this is, I guess, would be Act 3 of Easter. The dominoes are about ready to fall. Thomas is with them in the room that they're still locked away in. Despite the fact that Mary told them that Jesus had been raised from the dead, that Jesus had stood in that room with them and said, hey, I'm here. They're still locked up. Jesus comes in again, despite the locks, and says, peace be with you. And he looks at Thomas and says, see my hands. Put your fingers in there. See my side. Thomas doesn't need to touch him any longer. He falls to his knees and says, my Lord and my God. Jesus said, blessed are those who have faith but have not seen. Yes, it's probably better if, you don't feel the limits, if your mind can grasp the concepts. But Martha Spong puts it this way, but we need not despair, for we worship a God who had a body and lets us see the marks of his love. So no matter how we need to experience the gospel, our God helps us learn at our own pace, in our own way, so that we can share this life-giving, life-changing news with all the other people in the world who desperately need to know it. Jesus. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Christ is risen. He is risen indeed. Amen.